The dorm room door swung open and my heart stopped. There in the dim glow of my desk lamp stood Riley, her eyes wide, holding my journal, my secret journal. I'd left it open, the pages screaming truths I'd never dared to speak aloud. "Ellie, what is this?" Riley's voice trembled. Not with anger but something softer. Something that made my chest ache. I froze, my hands shaking as I tried to form words. The air in our tiny NYU dorm room felt thick, like the world was holding its breath, waiting for me to confess. We'd been best friends since freshman orientation. Two small-town girls navigating the chaos of New York City. Riley, with her wild black hair and infectious laugh, was the sun to my quiet moon. I'd spent 2 years hiding how I felt, burying it under late-night study sessions and shared coffee runs. But now my journal, filled with poems about her, about the way her smile lit up my world, lay exposed. I'd written her name 1,000 times, each letter a confession of love I thought I'd take to my grave. "Riley, my voice cracked. I wanted to run, to disappear into the city's hum, but her gaze held me in place. She stepped closer, the journal still in her hands, her expression unreadable. "I didn't mean for you to see that." She didn't speak, just looked at me, her brown eyes searching mine. The silence was unbearable, each second stretching into eternity. I braced for rejection, for the end of our friendship, for the loss of the one person who made this concrete jungle feel like home. But then she did something I didn't expect. She set the journal down gently, like it was sacred, and crossed the room to me. Her hand brushed mine, tentative, warm. "Ellie," she whispered. "Why didn't you tell me?" I couldn't breathe. The question hung between us, heavy with possibilities. I'd spent so long hiding, so long pretending, that the idea of being seen, really seen, terrified me. But Riley wasn't running. She wasn't turning away. She was standing there, closer than ever, her breath mingling with mine in the quiet of our shared space. "I was scared," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. "Scared you'd hate me. Scared I'd ruin everything." Her fingers tightened around mine, grounding me. "You could never ruin us," she said, and there was a fierceness in her voice that made my heart stutter. "But this changes things." I didn't know what she meant. Not yet. But in that moment, with her hand in mine and the truth laid bare, I felt the world shift. This wasn't just a confession. It was the beginning of something bigger, something that could break us or make us whole. The next morning I woke to the sound of Riley humming in the kitchenette, the smell of coffee filling the air. It was such a normal sound, so familiar, yet everything felt different. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying last night. She hadn't pushed me away, hadn't laughed or recoiled. Instead, she'd stayed up with me until 2 a.m. talking, not about the journal, not directly, but about everything else. Our hometowns, our dreams, the way the city made us feel alive and terrified all at once. It was like we were rediscovering each other, peeling back layers we'd both been too afraid to touch. I pulled myself out of bed, my stomach twisting with nerves. Riley was at the counter, pouring coffee into mismatched mugs. She looked up, her smile soft but guarded. "Morning, sleepyhead," she said, handing me a mug. Her fingers brushed mine again, and I wondered if she felt the same electric jolt I did. "Thanks," I mumbled, taking a sip to hide my blush. The coffee was too hot, but I didn't care. I needed something to anchor me, to keep me from spiraling into the what-ifs. What if she was just being kind? What if she didn't feel the same? What if I'd misread everything? "Ellie," she said, her voice pulling me back. She was leaning against the counter, her sweater slipping off one shoulder, her hair a mess of waves. "We need to talk about it." The journal. My heart sank. Here it was, the moment I dreaded. I nodded, setting my mug down, bracing myself. "Okay." She took a deep breath, her eyes locking onto mine. "I read more than I should have. I'm sorry. But I'm not sorry, I know." She paused, biting her lip. "I just wish you'd told me sooner." I blinked, confused. "What do you mean?" "I mean," she hesitated, her fingers fidgeting with the hem of her sweater. "I mean, I've been trying to figure out how to tell you something too." My pulse quickened. The room felt too small, the air too warm. "Tell me what?" She looked away, out the window at the city waking up below. "I've been scared too," she said softly. Scared of what it means to feel something. For you. The words hit me like a tidal wave. I stared at her, my mind racing to catch up. Was she saying what I thought she was? I opened my mouth, but no words came out. Riley turned back to me, her eyes bright with something I couldn't name. Fear, hope, maybe both. I don't know what this is, she continued, her voice shaking. I don't know if I'm like you. But I know I care about you. More than I've ever cared about anyone. I wanted to cry, to laugh, to pull her into my arms. But I just stood there, rooted to the spot, as the weight of her words settled over me. This wasn't a rejection. It was something else entirely. A door opening, a chance I'd never dared to dream of. Riley, I said, my voice thick with emotion. What do we do now? She smiled, small and uncertain but real. We figure it out. Together. That day we skipped our morning classes. It wasn't like us. Riley was the responsible one, always dragging me to lectures with her color-coded notes. But today we needed time. Time to sit with this new truth, to let it breathe. We walked through Washington Square Park, the autumn leaves crunching under our boots, the city alive around us. Neither of us said much, but the silence wasn't heavy anymore. It was hopeful. We stopped at a bench, watching street musicians play for tips. Riley's shoulder brushed against mine, and for the first time I didn't pull away. I let myself feel it, let myself want it. Do you think this is crazy? I asked, my voice barely audible over the strum of a guitar. She laughed, a sound that warmed me from the inside out. Maybe, but crazy's not always bad, right? I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw something new in her eyes. Not just friendship, not just care, but something deeper, something that mirrored the ache in my chest. I didn't know where this would lead, but for the first time I wasn't afraid to find out. The days after Riley's confession felt like walking on a tightrope. Every glance, every touch, carried weight, electric, terrifying, exhilarating. We were still us, Ellie and Riley, best friends who knew each other's coffee orders and bad habits. But now there was this undercurrent, this unspoken question of what we could become. We didn't talk about it directly, not at first. Instead, we fell into a rhythm of small, tentative steps. A lingering hug after a late-night study session. A shared laugh that felt too intimate, too charged. I caught her watching me sometimes, her eyes soft and curious, like she was seeing me for the first time. And I wondered if she saw the same in me, the way I memorized the curve of her jaw, the way her laughter made my heart race. But the world doesn't stop for revelations. Midterms were looming, and our dorm was a mess of textbooks and empty energy drink cans. One night we were sprawled on the floor, surrounded by notes on American literature, when Riley's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, her face tightening, and set it down without a word. Who was that? I asked, trying to keep my tone light. I'd seen that look before, her mom probably calling to check in or lecture her about grades. She sighed, pushing her hair back. Just my mom. She wants me to come home for Thanksgiving. I nodded, but my stomach twisted. Riley's family was complicated. Small-town conservative, the kind of people who went to church every Sunday and thought New York was a den of sin. I'd met them once at move-in day freshman year, and the memory of her mom's tight-lipped smile still made me uneasy. Are you going? I asked, picking at a loose thread on my jeans. I don't know. She leaned back against the couch, her eyes distant. It's not just about going home. It's everything. They don't know about me. About this. She gestured vaguely between us, her voice low. I swallowed, the weight of her words settling over me. Have you thought about telling them? She laughed, but it was bitter, not her usual warmth. Yeah, right. My mom would lose it. She already thinks I'm too influenced by the city. If she knew, she trailed off, shaking her head. I wanted to reach for her, to tell her it would be okay. But I didn't know if that was true. My own coming out had been messy. My parents hadn't disowned me, but the awkward silences and forced smiles still stung. Riley's family was different, stricter, and the thought of her facing that alone made my chest ache. You don't have to decide now, I said finally. And you don't have to do it alone. She looked at me, her expression softening. You do that? Come with me. I nodded before I could overthink it. If you want me to. For a moment neither of us spoke. Then she reached for my hand, her fingers intertwining with mine. You're too good to me, Ellie, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. The weeks leading up to Thanksgiving were a blur of classes, coffee, and stolen moments. We didn't put a label on what we were, friends, more than friends, something in between, but every day felt like a step closer to something real. One night, we ended up at a queer poetry slam in the village, dragged there by our friend Sam, who'd been trying to get us out of the dorm for weeks. The basement venue was packed, the air thick with cigarette smoke and the hum of voices. Riley was nervous, her knee bouncing under the table, but when a poet took the stage and started speaking about love, raw, unapologetic love, her hand found mine under the table. I squeezed it, my heart pounding. The words washed over us, each line a mirror to the feelings we hadn't yet named. After the slam, we walked back to the dorm under a starless city sky, our shoulders brushing. That was intense, Riley said, her voice soft. Did you ever think about doing something like that? Writing your poems for people to hear? I blushed, thinking of the journal she'd found. Maybe. But it's scary, you know? Putting it all out there. She stopped walking, turning to face me. The streetlights cast shadows across her face, making her look older, wiser. You're braver than you think, Ellie. You wrote those things about me. That's not nothing. I looked down, my cheeks burning. I didn't think anyone would ever read them. I'm glad I did, she said, and there was that smile again, the one that made the world feel right. I'm glad it was me. We stood there, the city buzzing around us, and I wanted to kiss her. I wanted to close the distance, to feel her lips against mine, to know what it was like to be hers. But I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I took her hand and we walked home in silence, the weight of what could be hanging between us. Thanksgiving came too fast. Riley decided to go home to Pennsylvania, and I was going with her. The train ride was long, the countryside blurring past as we sat side by side, sharing earbuds and a playlist of indie songs. Her head rested on my shoulder, and I tried not to think about what waited for us at the other end. Her hometown was exactly what I'd pictured. Small, quiet, with white picket fences and a church on every corner. Her parents' house was a modest two-story, the kind of place that smelled like potpourri and old wood. Her mom greeted us with hugs, but her eyes lingered on me, like she was trying to figure out what I was doing there. Dinner was tense. Riley's dad asked about school, her mom made pointed comments about city values, and her younger brother kept sneaking glances at us, like he knew something was up. Riley was quieter than usual, her answers short, her smile forced. Under the table, her hand found mine, and I held it tight, willing her to feel my strength. That night we shared her childhood bed. The room filled with relics of her past, trophies, posters, a stuffed bear she swore she'd thrown out. We lay there in the dark, whispering so her parents wouldn't hear. Do you think they'd ever understand? She asked, her voice small. I turned to face her, our noses inches apart. Maybe someday, but even if they don't, you're still you. And you're enough. She didn't say anything, but her hand found mine again, and we fell asleep like that, tangled together in the quiet of her old room. It wasn't a solution, but it was a start. The morning after Thanksgiving, Riley's house felt like a pressure cooker. Her mom was in the kitchen, banging pots louder than necessary, and her dad kept his nose buried in the newspaper. Riley was on edge, her usual spark dimmed. I wanted to fix it, to take her back to New York where we could be ourselves, but we had 2 more days here. We escaped to a local diner, a greasy spoon with cracked vinyl booths and coffee that tasted like it had been brewing since the 90s. Riley stirred her milkshake, her eyes distant. I don't know how to do this, Ellie, she said finally. Be here and be me. I reached across the table, my fingers brushing hers. You don't have to have it all figured out. Just be honest with yourself. The rest will come. She looked at me, her eyes searching. How do you do it? Be so sure. I laughed, but it was hollow. I'm not sure. I'm terrified half the time. But I know I'd rather be scared and honest than hide who I am. She nodded, but I could see the doubt lingering. Coming out wasn't just about saying the words, it was about facing the fallout. For Riley, that meant risking her family, her home, everything she'd known before New York. I wanted to protect her, but I knew this was her fight. All I could do was stand beside her. Back at the house, things got worse. Riley's mom cornered her while I was in the bathroom, and I came back to raised voices. "You're different, Riley," her mom was saying, her tone sharp. "Ever since you went to that city, you've been off. Is it that girl? Ellie?" My heart stopped. I stood frozen in the hallway, clutching the towel I'd been drying my hands with. Riley's voice was steady, but I could hear the strain. "Ellie's my friend, Mom. My best friend." "Friends don't look at each other like that," her mom snapped. "I'm not blind, Riley. I see the way you two are." I stepped into the room, my face burning. "Mrs. Carter, stay out of this." She cut me off, her eyes cold. "This is between me and my daughter." Riley's face was pale, but she stood taller. "No, Mom. If you have a problem with Ellie, you have a problem with me." The room went silent. Her mom's mouth opened, then closed like she couldn't find the words. Her dad looked up from his newspaper, his brow furrowed. "What's going on here?" he asked, his voice calm but firm. Riley took a deep breath, her hands shaking. "I'm not who you think I am," she said. I think I might be gay." The words hung in the air, heavy and final. Her mom's face crumpled, and her dad set his paper down slowly, like he was processing each syllable. I wanted to reach for Riley to pull her out of this suffocating room, but I stayed still, letting her moment stand. Her mom's voice was a whisper. "You don't know what you're saying." "I do," Riley said, her voice stronger now. "I've been figuring it out for a while. And Ellie, she's helped me see it." All eyes turned to me and I felt exposed like I was on trial. But Riley's hand found mine and she squeezed it hard. "I'm not ashamed," she said, looking at her parents. "I'm not sorry." Her mom started to cry, silent tears streaming down her face. Her dad stood, his chair scraping against the floor. "We need to talk about this," he said, his voice low. "As a family." Riley nodded, but she didn't let go of my hand. "Okay. But I'm not changing who I am." The rest of the trip was a blur of tense silences and forced politeness. Riley's parents didn't kick us out, but the warmth was gone. Her mom avoided me, and her dad kept trying to talk sense into Riley, as if her feelings were a phase she'd outgrow. By the time we boarded the train back to New York, Riley looked exhausted, but there was a fire in her eyes I hadn't seen before. On the train, she leaned against me, her head on my shoulder. "I did it," she whispered. "I told them." "You were incredible," I said, meaning every word. "How do you feel?" "Scared," she admitted. "But free. Like I can finally breathe." I kissed the top of her head, a small impulsive gesture that made her smile. "You're braver than you know," I said. She looked up at me, her eyes bright. I had a good teacher. We didn't talk much after that. Just let the rhythm of the train carry us back to the city. But something had shifted. Riley wasn't just my best friend anymore. She was something more, something we were both starting to name. Back at NYU, the dorm felt like a sanctuary. We dropped our bags and collapsed onto the couch, the weight of the weekend still heavy on us. Riley curled up against me, her head on my chest, and I wrapped my arms around her, breathing in the familiar scent of her shampoo. "Do you think they'll ever come around?" she asked, her voice muffled. "I don't know," I said honestly. "But even if they don't, you've got me. And Sam, and the Poetry Slam crew, and half the English department." She laughed, a real laugh this time, and it felt like sunlight breaking through clouds. "You're right. I've got you." We stayed like that for a while, the city humming outside our window. And then, without warning, Riley tilted her head up and kissed me. It was soft, hesitant, but it set my world on fire. I kissed her back, my hands tangling in her hair. And for the first time, I let myself believe this could be real. When we pulled apart, her cheeks were flushed, her eyes wide. "Was that okay?" she asked, her voice small. "More than okay," I said, grinning like an idiot. "Way more than okay." She laughed and we kissed again, the world falling away until it was just us. Just this moment, Just the beginning of something we'd both been too scared to name. Kissing Riley was like discovering a new language, one I'd been studying in secret but never spoken aloud. Each touch, each glance felt like a conversation, full of meaning and promise. But with that came a new kind of fear. What happened next? We didn't tell anyone, not right away. It wasn't about shame. It was about protecting this fragile, beautiful thing we'd found. The dorm became our safe haven, a place where we could steal kisses between study sessions and fall asleep tangled together on my too small bed. But outside, the world was waiting. Classmates, friends, and the ever-present buzz of New York, ready to pull us apart or push us closer. One afternoon, we were at a cafe near campus, our books spread out but untouched. Riley was sketching in her notebook, her brow furrowed in concentration. I watched her, marveling at how someone could be so familiar yet so new. "What?" she asked, catching me staring. "Nothing," I said, but my smile gave me away. "Just you." She rolled her eyes but her cheeks pinked. "You're ridiculous." "And you love it," I teased, nudging her foot under the table. She grinned but it faded as her phone buzzed. Another text from her mom. She'd been texting nonstop since Thanksgiving, alternating between guilt trips and pleas for Riley to think about her future. Riley sighed, setting her phone face down. "She won't let it go," she said. "She keeps saying I'm confused, that I need to come home and fix this." I reached for her hand, my thumb brushing over her knuckles. "You're not confused. You're you. And that's enough." She squeezed my hand but her eyes were distant. What if she's right? What if I'm not ready for this? For us? Her words stung but I pushed the hurt down. "Do you want this?" I asked, my voice steady despite the ache in my chest. "Us." She looked at me, her eyes softening. "More than anything. But it's hard, Ellie. I've never done this before. I don't know how to be out." I nodded, understanding more than I wanted to. Coming out wasn't a one-time thing. It was a series of choices, each one scarier than the last. "You don't have to have all the answers," I said. "We'll figure it out together." That night, we went to another poetry slam, this time with me as a performer. I'd been working up the courage since Riley found my journal, and tonight, with her in the audience, felt like the right moment. My hands shook as I took the stage, the spotlight blinding, the crowd a blur of faces. But I found Riley's eyes and they anchored me. I read a poem I'd written for her, though I didn't say her name. It was about love as a quiet revolution, about finding home in someone else's heartbeat. The words poured out, raw and unfiltered, and when I finished, the room erupted in applause. Riley was clapping, her eyes shining with tears. Afterward, she pulled me into a hug, her voice muffled against my shoulder. "That was about me, wasn't it?" "Maybe," I said, grinning. "You'll never know." She laughed and we kissed right there in the crowded basement, not caring who saw. It felt like a declaration, a step towards something bigger. But the world has a way of complicating things. The next morning, Riley got a call from her mom. I could hear the shouting through the phone, even from across the room. When Riley hung up, her face was pale, her hands trembling. "She's coming here," she said, her voice flat. "Tomorrow." I blinked, my heart sinking. "To New York." Riley nodded. "She says she wants to talk. In person." I sat beside her, taking her hand. "Do you want me there?" She hesitated, then shook her head. "I need to do this alone. But stay close, okay?" "Always," I promised. The next day, Riley's mom arrived, her face a mask of determination. They met in the common room, and I waited in our dorm, pacing like a caged animal. I could hear snippets of their conversation through the thin walls, her mom's voice sharp, Riley's steady but strained. It went on for hours, and when Riley finally came back, she looked drained, like she'd run a marathon. "She wants me to transfer," she said, slumping onto the couch, "to a school closer to home. She thinks New York is corrupting me." I sat beside her, my heart pounding. "What did you say?" "I told her no," she said, her voice firm despite her exhaustion. "I told her I'm staying. With you." Relief flooded me, but it was tempered by worry. "Is she okay?" Riley shook her head. "She's not." But that's not my job to fix. I can't live for her. I pulled her into my arms, holding her tight. You're so strong, I whispered. I'm so proud of you. She buried her face in my neck, and we stayed like that, the world outside fading away. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours. Riley's mom left the next morning, and the dorm felt lighter, like a storm had passed. But the aftermath lingered. Riley was quieter, her smiles less frequent. I wanted to fix it, to make her laugh like she used to, but I knew she needed time. So I gave her space, filling the silence with small gestures, her favorite coffee, a playlist of songs that made her smile. A note slipped under her pillow that said, "You're my home." One evening we went to the rooftop of our dorm building, a spot we'd claimed as ours. The city stretched out below, a sea of lights and noise. Riley leaned against the railing, her hair catching the wind. I keep thinking about what she said, she admitted. That I'm throwing my life away. That I'm choosing you over everything. I stood beside her, my shoulder brushing hers. Do you feel like you're throwing anything away? She turned to me, her eyes fierce. No. I feel like I'm choosing myself for the first time. I smiled, my heart swelling. Good. Because you deserve that. She reached for my hand, her fingers cold but steady. I don't know what I'd do without you, Ellie. You'd be fine, I said, though the thought of her without me made my chest ache. But I'm glad you don't have to. We stood there watching the city breathe, and I felt it, the weight of what we were building. It wasn't just love. It was trust, vulnerability, the kind of connection that could withstand anything. Winter break was approaching, and with it, the question of where we'd go. Riley wasn't ready to face her family again, and I didn't want to leave her alone, so we decided to stay in New York, just the two of us. The dorms were mostly empty, the campus quiet, and it felt like we had the city to ourselves. We spent our days exploring, ice skating in Central Park, browsing bookstores in the village, sharing hot chocolate under Christmas lights. Each moment felt like a gift, a chance to build something new. But there were still moments of doubt, moments when Riley's fear crept back in. One night we were curled up on the couch, watching a cheesy holiday movie, when she turned to me. What if this doesn't work? She asked, her voice small. What if we're just too different? I took her face in my hands, my thumbs brushing her cheeks. We're not perfect. But we're us. And that's enough. She kissed me then, slow and deep, and I felt her fear melt away, replaced by something stronger. We made love that night, our first time, and it was messy and beautiful and everything I'd never dared to hope for. Afterward we lay tangled together, her heartbeat steady against mine, and I knew this was what I wanted. Forever if she'd let me. But life has a way of testing you. A week later, Riley got an email from her dad. He wasn't as harsh as her mom, but his words were clear. They wanted her to come home for Christmas to talk things through. Riley stared at the screen, her jaw tight. Do you want to go? I asked, dreading her answer. She shook her head. I can't. Not yet. But I feel guilty. Like I'm abandoning them. You're not, I said, taking her hand. You're living your life. They'll come around or they won't. But you can't stop being you. She nodded, but I could see the weight of it all pressing down on her. I hated that I couldn't fix it, that I couldn't shield her from the pain of choosing herself. The next day we went to a queer community center event. A holiday party filled with laughter and warmth. Riley was hesitant at first, but by the end of the night, she was dancing with me, her smile brighter than I'd seen in weeks. We met people like us, people who'd faced rejection, who'd built new families, who'd found joy despite the pain. It was a reminder that we weren't alone, that there was a world waiting to embrace us. As we walked home, snow falling softly around us, Riley stopped me under a streetlight. I love you, she said, the words spilling out like they'd been waiting forever. I froze, my heart in my throat. I love you too, I said, and then we were kissing, the snow catching in our hair, the city fading away. It was a promise, a vow, a moment I'd carry forever. Spring semester brought a new rhythm to our lives. Riley and I were a couple now, no question about it. We held hands in the quad, kissed in the library stacks, laughed too loud in the dining hall. But with every step into this new life, there were shadows, her family's silence, the whispers from classmates who didn't understand, the fear that this happiness was too fragile to last. One afternoon we were studying in the library when Sam, our friend from the poetry slam, slid into the seat across from us. "You two are disgustingly cute," he teased, tossing a crumpled napkin at me. Riley laughed, her cheeks flushing. "Jealous?" "Maybe," Sam said, grinning. "But seriously, you guys are like goals. You're making me believe in love again." His words warmed me, but Riley's smile faltered. Later, as we walked back to the dorm, she was quiet. "What's wrong?" I asked, nudging her shoulder. She sighed, kicking a pebble across the sidewalk. I wonder if we're moving too fast. If I'm ready for all this." My heart sank, but I kept my voice steady. "Do you want to slow down?" "No," she said quickly, grabbing my hand. "I don't. I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop. Like something's going to break us." I stopped walking, turning to face her. "Nothing's going to break us unless we let it. We're stronger than that." She nodded, but I could see the doubt in her eyes. I wanted to believe my own words, but the truth was I was scared too. Love was a risk, and we were both learning how to take it. That night, Riley got a letter from her mom. Not an email, not a text, but an actual handwritten letter, the kind that felt like a relic from another time. She read it in silence, her face unreadable, then handed it to me. It was long, filled with her mom's careful cursive. She didn't apologize, not exactly, but she wrote about love, about wanting Riley to be happy, about struggling to understand. It wasn't acceptance, but it was a crack in the wall, a sign that maybe, just maybe, things could change. "She's trying," Riley said, her voice thick. "That's something, right?" "It's everything," I said, pulling her into a hug. "It's a start." We decided to celebrate. Not just the letter, but us, our love, our resilience, the life we were building. We went to a queer club in Brooklyn, the kind of place where the music was loud and the air was electric. Riley was radiant, her hair loose, her eyes bright. We danced until our feet hurt, our bodies pressed close, the world nothing but a blur of color and sound. At one point, she pulled me outside to catch our breath. The alley was quiet, the city humming in the distance. "I want this forever," she said, her voice fierce. "You and me." "Me too," I said, my heart full. "Forever." We kissed, and it felt like a vow. A promise sealed under the Brooklyn stars. But the next morning reality crashed in. Riley's dad called, his voice cold. He'd seen her mom's letter, and he wasn't happy. He wanted Riley to come home for spring break, to set things straight. Riley hung up, her hands shaking, and I could see the fear creeping back. "I can't keep doing this," she said, her voice breaking. "I can't keep fighting them." "Then don't," I said, taking her hands. "You don't have to fight. You just have to be you. Let them come to you." She looked at me, tears in her eyes. "What if they never do?" "Then you've got me," I said. "And I'm not going anywhere." She fell into my arms and I held her, wishing I could take away her pain. But all I could do was love her, and hope that was enough. Spring break came and Riley didn't go home. We stayed in New York, building our own traditions. Morning coffee runs, late-night walks, poetry slams where we both read now. Our voices weaving together. Her family's silence was a shadow, but we filled it with light, with love, with the life we were creating. One evening we were on the rooftop again, the city glittering below. Riley was strumming her guitar, a soft melody that felt like a heartbeat. "I wrote something," she said, her voice shy. "For you." She played, her fingers dancing over the strings, and sang a song about finding courage, about choosing love over fear. Her voice was raw, imperfect, beautiful. When she finished, I was crying, and so was she. "That was perfect," I said, wiping my eyes. "You're perfect." She laughed, setting her guitar down. "I'm a mess. But I'm your mess." "Damn right," I said, pulling her into a kiss. The city was alive around us, but in that moment it was just us. Just this love we'd fought for. The semester ended, and with it came a new challenge, summer. Riley's parents wanted her home, but she wasn't ready. Instead, we found a sublet in Brooklyn. A tiny apartment with creaky floors and a view of the skyline. It was ours, our first real home together. Moving in was chaos, boxes everywhere, arguments over where to put the couch, laughter when we realized we'd bought 2 left shoes for our new rug. But it was ours, every messy, beautiful moment. One night, as we lay in bed, the city quiet outside, Riley turned to me. "I got an email from my dad," she said. "He wants to meet. Just him, not Mom. He says he's trying." My heart leapt. "That's huge, Riley." She nodded, her eyes bright. "I'm scared. But I want to try too." "I'll be there," I said. "If you want me." She smiled, her hand finding mine. "Always." The meeting was at a coffee shop in Manhattan, neutral ground. Riley's dad was quieter than I remembered. His face lined with something like regret. He didn't apologize, but he listened as Riley talked, really listened. He asked about her life, about me, about what made her happy. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start, a bridge we could build on. When we left, Riley was shaking, but she was smiling. "He didn't hate me," she said, her voice full of wonder. "He didn't understand, but he didn't hate me." I squeezed her hand. "He's lucky to have you." That summer we grew into ourselves. Riley started writing songs, performing at open mics. I kept writing poetry, my words bolder now, fueled by her love. We weren't perfect, we fought, we cried, we made mistakes, but we always came back to each other. One night, we went back to the poetry slam where it all began. I read a new poem, one about love as a revolution, about choosing each other every day. Riley was in the front row, her eyes shining, and when I finished she stood, clapping louder than anyone. Afterward we walked home, our hands intertwined. "I'm proud of you," she said, her voice soft. "For being you. For loving me." "I'm proud of us," I said. "For everything." We stopped under a streetlight, the city alive around us. Riley looked at me, her eyes full of love, and I knew this was it. Our forever, our home, our truth. We'd been through fear, pain, and uncertainty, but we'd come out stronger together. And as we kissed, the world felt right, like every moment had led us here. It wasn't the end of our story. It was just the beginning.